Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. I have been really busy for a while, and I haven't done any updates or given you any hint about where we are in the organization. And so today I felt it was necessary to do that. I'm going to talk on a very large scale, so give you an idea how it fits in. I've told you before in previous videos that mankind has been at a crossroads where there have been three potential futures, and there still is a battle going on between those, obviously. But you could say that the existing structure is proving that it's not working very well. Let's say the authoritarians are not let's say Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and different individuals, like the battle between the Asia taking over. That isn't working very well because of the Putin's invasion of Ukraine and that. So it's becoming evident now that there's only let's say two potential ideas that are valid left over, and that is, but there's still a lot of conflict associated with that. So let's say Joe Biden, when you have the three levels in the universe, you could say, there are three choices that we have. Up is to do what's in everyone's best interest. Straight ahead, so one is going up. One is straight ahead, goes like this, and then one goes down. So the authoritarians have been going down, and so there's still the kind of like a conflict between up and straight ahead. And the reason for that is because we're still kind of like, it's obvious that the battle between straight ahead and down is down has immediately gone down, but straight ahead still seems to be working for a while. So there are people who basically don't really see the potential for the plan for world peace, but as opposed to what's straight ahead. The down isn't working, but up has been going on, and the people who are going straight ahead will be coming up and joining later, if that makes any sense to you. The plan, the group of people, so the people who are focused on this idea are eventually everybody will be joining because they're the people who survive, you could say, over the next few years eventually everybody will be joining when people stand on the principles. So let's say that if you have in the government, Joe Biden is doing very well in the United States. Joe Biden is doing very well, overcoming the effects of the economy, bringing inflation down and things like that. But the idea of an economy for the future that allows everybody to function and everybody to get ahead, that he's not doing that very well. It's still not addressing a whole comprehensive idea for the future. Obviously, relying on Donald Trump to make you prosperous again isn't working at all, because it's just like a dream or a promise that he can't fulfill. But so Joe Biden is doing well, but eventually it will go down. He will go down and then accept the idea of the international government, because that is addressing the problem. So now we're going to just kind of separate ourselves out a little bit from that and let those two groups deal with their own issues, and then if they want to step up and be part of this, then they can. Okay, so in the meantime, what has been happening is is that over the last 16 years or so, a billion people, this is a message I got, a billion people had to be in the right time and place and frame of mind for things to go forward. And that's what's been happening over the last 16 years. People had to be ready to come and understand and see the potential of it, and it's been moving forward. I had, let's say, at the beginning of the 16 years, I'm going to give you two visions that I've had to give you an idea. One of them was the first one, 16 years ago, was a vision where I was standing at my door, and I have like an alleyway, and I'm on an alley, and then to one side of me, I live in a small town, and on the one side, if I look down that direction, I'm not too far from let's say the fast food places that stay open all night. So it was, or their lights are very bright in town. When you go through town, you can see the lights. That's basically the only things that are basically lighting up the main part of town, where everybody else, they just shut down and have small lights or street lights. That area was the brightest area. When in that vision, I was standing in my doorway, and I had light outside my doorway, like a half circle of light that went up maybe 40, 50 feet. And then on the other side of it, it was intense darkness. And the only light that I could see, it was like absolute darkness. And when I looked down one direction, I could see the lights from places like McDonald's, but it was a yellow light. It wasn't a white light, it was a yellow light. So basically yellow is the color of business and prosperity, things like that. So those areas were still prosperous. They were still making money, they were still doing things. But then as I was standing in the doorway, a man came through the darkness, and out of the darkness, and then he walked right through the light, and he didn't see it. He couldn't see the light. He didn't recognize me. He was just, his eyes were glazed. That's where people have been for the last 16 years. And then just recently, so the darkness is the idea, the fear of the pandemic, you could say, came from that. The idea of the let's say, all the conflict, the rise of authoritarianism, trying to defend your country from the schism that's been not defending your country, but the schism that's been tearing us apart, Armageddon. Okay, so in 2003, you could say, from January 2008 to December 2012, all the cycles lined up. And then, so now it's been very difficult for people because all of these past life issues and things like that have been playing out. We're just being ripped and torn apart, and that's was the profound darkness. But just recently, I had another vision, and I was like standing in the same place or inside my building, looking out, and all the darkness had accumulated into, had aggregation would probably be the better word, into a round ball, and so there was light, but then it went out in 50 feet into my alley, and it was just a black ball of darkness, and around it was light. The light had come into the world again. And when I was here, you could say, the first one, I was like a single point of light, because I had channeled all this information from the spiritual hierarchy, my books, basically. But now what's happening is the light has gone out to the point where there's light all over, except for this point of darkness in like a black hole. There's like a black hole, and the scientists have been they have discovered what they believe is because of Pluto and the weird orbits that other planets have, they think there's a black hole out there that is creating a gravity wave hole that's causing the planets to, not necessarily causing the planets, but all the wars that we've had and all the cycles lining up, that the darkness has accumulated into this black area outside this solar system, you could say, but it's at the edge of our solar system. There's the spiritual idea of synchronicity has an idea that it's like what we have here. There's black holes all over the galaxy, and what we see at our prayer circle, we prayed for the galaxy. So I'm talking. We prayed for the 100-mile radius, the planet, and the galaxy. And so now what we're doing is we are having an effect because of our prayer circle. We're having an effect on here at the prayer circle, within the 100-mile radius, the idea of the solar system, the planet in the solar system. But then that our planet in the solar system really doesn't affect the galaxy, except it does because of synchronicity. It's like what's happening there on every level is happening at the center, but there's a big black hole at the center of the galaxy too. So when there's a black hole, like what happened out there, there's light around it. You've seen pictures of black holes. There's like light around it, but what goes into it comes out, and it's like a shard, a black cinder that gets broken out. It's coming out of it. What comes out of it is, I'd say, the gravitational waves, but also that object that was ejected towards us, you could say, very high speed, the Momo, or whatever, I can't remember the Hawaiian name for it, but the object that came out from, how did it get out through? It probably came from a planet that was being chomped up. Well, so what we want to do is we want to address this idea of this black hole that's sitting out there. Stephen Hawking hypothesized, I don't know if you're interested in Stephen Hawking and cosmology, but he said that in a black hole, the energy from the black hole can be dissipated. And then, so what we want to do is we want to stop these gravitational waves from dragging us into that black hole, from feeding on that black hole and making like the black hole here that's been around our planet, and the black hole that is at the edge of our solar system, and the black hole that's at the center of the galaxy. Because we're a galaxy inside, our galaxy has a center, but then the black hole, you could say, is darkness within the universe. All right, so we want to, we live in a universe that's making its ascension from the 12th dimension to the 13th dimension, and we want to make our ascension right along with it rather than being left behind. Okay, so I know this sounds really strange, but we want to stop the black hole. We want light. Light is a creative substance that when you put a thought form into it, creates matter. So what we want to do, if we are getting revenge on somebody, we're playing the power games of revenge and wars and genocides and massacres and all the different 7 deadly sins. Basically what we want to do is introduce those principles that counter those, and that I showed you my light source invention here. Okay, so you can see that these are like the beginnings of gravity waves that are going out. I've showed, oops, it's upside down. I've showed you these ideas of the light source invention, and these are the gravity waves that start out small and then they get bigger, and then they get bigger and then they get very big. So we want to stop these gravitational waves. There's two different forms of light. There's the photons and there's a particulate form of light and the wave form of light. So let's say this is the wave form of light where let's say the battle between light and darkness occurs. But then we want to do the photon form of it, which is where we can create matter. This is where we're starting the idea of separating the yin and the yang idea, the light and the darkness. And instead of focusing on the darkness and what is causing it, groups of people will be involved with that, but the rest of us are going to be working to create our own lives. And then we'll demonstrate conflict resolution is everybody has to be considered equal. We're all part of the same planet. We're part of mankind. And then as we separate out, those of us who are fighting are separated from the people, let's say, are separated from the people who are working on creating our lives and our business. Okay, I'll give you an example. In Ukraine, when the war started, when the invasion started, the men went and between the certain ages stayed in Ukraine and they fought. Every man had to stay there and fight, and all the women and children took off and they went to they left the country and they moved into other areas of Europe and maybe the United States and came up here and whatever. When they left, they were able to still maintain they had to come up with the idea of creating a cash flow because they couldn't keep relying on other people. That's why you see so many people like using YouTube. Okay, but the men stayed back there and fought. They were in the darkness, they were in the fear. Anybody who stayed there were facing most terrifying circumstances, and they were in this battle. Okay, so the men were in the battle, the women were responsible, they were protecting the women and children, and then now what happened is that the women need to create a cash flow. That's the way it is. If women are fighting, basically what happens is that causes problems with this balance between a society can't function if the women basically are waging war. Women are not supposed to be waging war. We're supposed to be protecting it, but we're also supposed to be working on the economy, because then there's kind of like a flip-flop idea that if in Russia, the war has killed their children and they have no way to defend themselves, they're standing up to defend their children and their families. So it's like we're like a herd of horses. If the stallion goes down, mankind is like a herd of horses. If the stallion goes down, then the head mare is responsible for fighting and protecting the family. So that's what the old grandmas are doing. They're going and they're standing up and they're protesting. If their children have been killed, they have no family anyway. So they're defending everybody else's families. They're becoming the grandmothers of everyone. You can say that's where I am. I am defending everybody's children by stopping wars. So now we stop wars. Okay? The whole idea now is separating out like a yin and a yang idea. The light and the darkness. But we're not fighting, we're trying to just stop the wars, okay? But because we're doing it for everyone, and that's where it goes, is to come up with a plan that benefits everyone. So the plan for world peace, you can say, has created a herd of horses that's defending itself from predators. And if the stallion goes down, the stallion is responsible for fighting, and the head mare is responsible for running and defending the herd. The children follow the head mare, and she's responsible for making sure that all the children, the other younger mares, and then what will happen is that they'll dissipate and create their own herds. Okay, when the young males reach a certain age, then they'll create their own. All right, their own herds. So this is where we are now, is to deal with that battle between light and darkness. But to dissipate the energy, well, that battle is going on. Those of us now who are going to be working in the light, we're going to be, instead of fighting, we're going to be working to create world peace and creating a world that balancing out, where people are going to be coming up and standing on principles. As this goes forward, people will be, it will be like maybe like the ship sank, they got into the lifeboats, but then if that'll work for a while, but if there's no Carpathian, there's no rescue ship coming, they can't stay there for very long. It'll work for a while. Now, I'm using analogies that aren't necessarily valid. What we're doing now is focusing on the idea of creating, working on the world peace idea and developing this and going forward. So now we have light, though, the light, and focusing on this. So instead of putting all our attention on that, people are already starting to figure out how they can rebuild the economy, how they can start doing that. I'm seeing lots of really great videos, not just people trying to make enough a cash flow, but their cash flow has to be based on their talents and gifts. The first principle of a global renaissance, you could say, is that everybody has to function from their own capacity, not based on weaving an illusion, not based on stealing, killing, anything like that. If somebody needs to create a cash flow, how about you think about the situation that Moses was in, when they walked away, when they were in the parting of the Red Sea, and all of a sudden they were in the wilderness for 40 years. Now imagine being in a situation where there were thousands of people walking through basically a desert landscape, and they didn't have canned food, and they had stored food for their own people to go through, and they were able to do exports, for example, possibly on good years, and handle things financially, were able to make money when they were good years and they could export it. They saved, they ate, they saved for a rainy day, and then they were able to export what they had left over. But what happens when you have thousands of people coming into that economy and they couldn't eat? How did they manifest what they needed? They had to manifest what they needed. So that's how they did it. Did they break apart into smaller groups? And then they kept communications? I don't know. That's something I haven't learned yet. I haven't experienced yet. But now, how do we do that when the economy is down? And I'm experiencing that because I'm a publisher and I have to print books, and the problem that is with paper, the printing industry has had a problem with paper. So how do we solve this problem? So that's where, if you see a dark cloud on the horizon and you can solve the problem based on doing what's in everyone's best interest, can you come up with a form of paper? But is that a business that is going to give you the money that you need? Are people just going to, what happens if you're a technological person and the internet goes down because of the wars? So how are we going to have, where there's going to be a transition period between now and the point of world peace, where we are dealing with all these issues that are now, what's it going to be like in 10 years, where is this going to be a transitional business that you're establishing? Or like my books, am I going to have to cover the issues of security because there's wildfires out there wiping out trees? Now I know that the trees, but what about the pulp books and recycling plastics and all of these things that are basically this transition period before we reach the point where we are actually living in peace? In 10 years after this takes off, like it's starting to do right now, there's going to be this. So what are the transitional ideas, and what is the next step when we actually have these inventions, like my power source invention? You could say this is, right now, it's an idea. So there's going to be a battle over technology. The battle over technology has already started, because there's a whole bunch of people like, what happens if this? Okay, what happens? I've talked about traveling out in the stars, and this is the power source for the spaceship. Let's say any alien spaceship that travels has this as a power source. But what happens, like I said, about nuclear power? That is going to be banned. But what is this transition period between nuclear power and to the point where this is actually functioning? So we have, right now, I have enough information to basically do this level and this level, the lowest and the highest levels. But where do we get the other 10 levels? This is like the Lady Gaia, God's body is a 12th dimension. God is a 12th dimensional being. So this is like an object, taking advantage of the fact that we are in God's body and we are in an energy field, and we're taking advantage of that. So you see, there's a transition period for the next 10 years that is coming. All right? So that's what I wanted to explain, is that if you focus on fighting in the darkness, where I'm going to be going around the planning circle. Took me 16 years to go around the planning circle to get to this point. And now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going around the planning circle with the government proposals. We're going to be separating this out. We're going to have the yin and the yang, the circle divided in half black and half white, and the S shape in it. And so I'm going to be going around in the light, and there's going to be another individual who's going around the planning circle in the darkness. And it will be like a different kind of dance that we're in. And then it will separate out, and we're going to be starting to look at government proposals, the constitutional amendment idea, my books, and how they allow people to go through this information, how to walk the rainbow. And I created a YouTube channel, and I think I'll put it down underneath there in the connection idea. But you have to realize that each of those, I'm not a computer expert, and I have to figure out, I'll explain where that is now when I put that down in there. There is on the rainbowpeacestore.us and on the rainbowpeacestore.com. So my books, my .us is just the independent members of the organization, and .com are for the people where you can buy professional quality books. My books are amateur quality, and they're not very good. I'm a professional publisher. I have a business, but my books are amateur quality, and I'm going to be turning them over to the professional publishing team when that gets established, when people start standing on the principles and coming up from the sinking ship idea, when they're starting to come off and flip up to working on going up and standing on the principles. That's part of the let's say the crisis center, when people get invited into projects. Okay, so the independent members were all parallel to a country, and each of us, when we work on a government proposal, we're going to be focusing on the issues of that family, and that's when I'll be talking on this website or this YouTube channel for the government proposals, and it will go proposals rather than this idea, and then this is my warehouse, my shipping warehouse that I'm in right now. But people are still fighting, and now that it's starting to break apart, there's going to be a different battle that's starting. It's a battle over technology pretty soon. That's already starting now because we have to ban nuclear power and we have to undersea mining. We're dealing with undersea mining. I'll do a separate page on that, video with that. So as I explain this, then basically you'll see where we're going now. And a lot of people probably won't be following this. People who are interested in the light, you'll be able to buy a newsletter and then follow that and keep track. I'll explain the newsletters in my next video. So thank you for stopping by. Thank you for taking the time. And thank you for following through to the end of the video. I know that this is not exciting, but I find it pretty interesting because I'm going up, and I think the idea of the light is a great idea. So thank you so much for stopping by. Please like, share, and subscribe, but you'll know what to do. Thank you.